Some things in life will change you forever. Running a marathon is definitely one of those things. Preparing for and completing a marathon will challenge you in more ways than you could imagine. But it's those challenges where we find the most room for growth. Back in April, I ran my first marathon, an experience I will definitely cherish forever. Training for and completing a marathon is a pretty unique experience and one I can definitely recommend to anyone else considering giving it a try. It has had a huge impact not just on my running but also my overall life. If you do want to check out my race video from London, you can check it out here. I finished London in 3 hours and 34 minutes, a time I couldn't be happier with for my first effort. Now, only about 5 months later, I'm looking to take a huge 34 minutes off my marathon time. A pretty ambitious goal, but one I'm willing to continue to work at, no matter how long it might take. So my next effort will take place in another 10 weeks time for the Sydney Marathon. Perhaps a little bit too soon, but if I don't quite make it, it will just be another stepping stone in my running journey. My advice to anybody else out there setting themselves pretty ambitious running goals is don't be afraid to set yourself hard goals, but remember, this really isn't the be all and end all. Running fast and constantly setting new personal bests is great, but I think it's important not to rest our entire happiness and sense of fulfillment purely on these time-based goals. My biggest goal for London earlier in the year was simply to try and enjoy every second of it. And this is still hugely important to me on absolutely any run. For London, of course, I did set myself some time-based goals. The quickest of these was 3 hours and 30 minutes, so I didn't quite hit that mark, but my sense of fulfillment with this wasn't aligned to that time in any way. Sure, I would have liked to have got there for my first marathon, but the whole experience in itself, the training, the whole lead up, the crowd, everything else, if I had broken that time, it wouldn't have made any difference to all those other amazing factors that go into completing a marathon. So for me, moving forward, after coming pretty close to 3 hours and 30 minutes, I had a much more ambitious goal in mind, and that next big goal, of course, was sub 3 hour. For me, a way to motivate me, but also to get a little bit more serious about my training. So yes, my next attempt will take place for the Sydney Marathon. This is a little bit sooner than I would have liked. It'll be about 5 months after the London Marathon, but this is my hometown marathon, which is really exciting. It is also a candidate race to get the 7th World Major spot, and if I am not quite successful, I do have another marathon planned for March next year, which will just be another step in this running journey. So as I'm recording this, it is now 10 weeks away from the Sydney Marathon. I plan to document this entire journey, something I'd wish I'd done for the London build up. I still get chills just watching back my race video from London, and it is really valuable to watch back on these. I plan to share a lot of tips and what I'm learning throughout this training block, as well as a race day video when we get there in September. So follow along if you want to see any of that and also experience what may be the next world major here in Sydney. To give you a bit of context, I have only got back into running about the last 8 months or so, but I've been much smarter with my running and I'm running way quicker than I used to. I hadn't run for many years prior to that, but back then I was really bad at training. I would just go out and run as hard as possible, not know what easy runs were, not know what anything else was other than pushing yourself to the limit. And despite being a physiotherapist, I definitely wasn't looking after my body. So I came back to running many years later, worked a lot on my cadence, my stride, my form, and it really helped. I still wasn't running much, but I was doing park run with my wife. I hadn't probably done more than 10K in many years, but I decided to do a marathon. So I really didn't know if I was even going to make the distance, but I wanted to give it a crack. So this is what really ignited and started my obsession and love with running. And here I am now wanting to document my entire running journey. This also ties in with the fact that I have changed my career slightly. I'm no longer working as a physio. I'm really using a lot of this knowledge with my running though. I'm now working as a photographer, videographer full time. So that's also why I really want to document this running journey. I have the skills there to do it. and it's something that I'm really enjoying. So it just made sense to document this journey. So to touch a little bit on my current shape and whether 3 hours is going to be achievable or not, I did do a half marathon exactly a month after London, and that was 1 hour and 34 minutes. I really didn't respect the recovery. I went straight back into training for that one. So I did have a little bit of an injury during that race. Not sure how much that shows my shape, but I have continued to hopefully improve a little bit since then. My recent parkrun time is around 19 minutes 17 seconds, and I also have a 10K race coming up very soon to see exactly where my fitness is at. Training wise, I do have a 16-week program which I purchased from Nick Bester, who is a coach, runner, YouTuber from London. It is a really great program. I have had to change it a little bit. I've got 2 races in that period. As mentioned, a 10K race, and I'll also be doing the famous Sydney City to Surf, which is a 14K race, a very hilly one, which I'll be doing in my build up as well. So I've adjusted a bit accordingly, and I've also dropped some of the track sessions just because of the hamstring problem I've had. I want to reduce some of that real fast stuff a little bit, unfortunately, but I think this is a smart move. Gear wise, I'm going to touch on my shoes and other things throughout this series, but I do mostly run in Ultra shoes, which I'll touch on a little bit more why that is the case in some future videos. I'll go through race kit, nutrition, all different things leading up to the race as well, so stay tuned for that. So I hope you can join me in this series building up to Sydney. I'm really excited to give this a crack and share my journey with you. Please do subscribe and support this relatively young channel, which has plenty of running ahead of it. Thanks so much for watching, and remember, we all run better together. Bye.